Thursday night football is upon us, and boy, oh boy, on paper, does this not look like a fun one. We're going to find some fun along the way, though, because, hey, it's still football. It's Broncos-Saints. Some players we like here. A lot of guys ruled out already. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Josh Reynolds going to be out. Of course, quarterback, no Derek Carr as well again. We're going to talk about it all. Let's get into it. And let's start with, of course, the baseline here. We're going to talk about projections, ownership projections. We're going to build some lineups out using the solver, the optimizer, to sim some stuff as we always do here. But I want to establish our totals here, of course. Also hopping over from doing a column for my fantasy points stuff for the week. So stay tuned for that in a little bit. We got Denver, though, 20.3 implied points. New Orleans, 17.3 implied points. The overview here would be New Orleans defense really getting worse by the week, but in particular against the run. That's really the softest matchup right now in this game. 0.1 EPA per rush allowed by the New Orleans defense. It's going to be actually the softest matchup of everything going on in this game. So one guy that come to mind, Javonte Williams. Of course, the workload's been up and down for him. That's a weird one to get into. Besides that, though, I expect this to be a game where Bo Nix does his thing, picks up the win on the road. I think it might be a little more competitive than people might be worried about, with the Saints side, of course, not having those receivers there. Rattler looked okay, but not great. But let's get into it. Let's look at the projections. Alvin Kamara, 21.6 fantasy points, your top projected player in the slate. Of course, as we saw last week, if the game overall isn't working out, if not everybody's getting there from the Saints, Alvin Kamara is probably not going to get there as well. He needs to get touchdowns, needs to get that workload. Checkdowns were there from enough last week. But again, for pure upside here, for the captain kind of ownership he's probably going to get with a projection, it's legitimately almost 5 points higher than everybody else. I'm not sold on Kamara as captain. I'm not sold on Kamara getting the workload in terms of touchdowns here. So my main concerns. Shout out to the chat, though. Appreciate all you guys being here. We got Bindles. We got Mr. Mister. We got Justin, Fly, Meatwad. Our guy Jason. Appreciate all you hanging out with me live here. And, of course, if you're watching after the fact or live, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Of course, doing the work here Mondays through Fridays, quote unquote. Not Wednesdays, of course, skips to Wednesdays. I skip the Wednesdays to worry about the data and all that stuff on my end. But Thursday showdown videos, Monday showdown videos, Friday the full slate preview. And of course, Sunday at 9 a.m. we'll be doing the main slate again, going through QB by QB and all the stacks on the Sims. Bo Nix, your number 2 projected player in the slate, guy in the thumbnail. Again, expect him to do pretty well here relative to whatever that means for Bo Nix. Bo Nix on the year running 6.2 times per game, dropping back 38 times per game. The drop back part of it's not been good. The run game part of it's really good. He actually has a 0.3 EPA per rush, which for a QB is about average, but for the most part, Bo Nix running well, adds that rushing upside. So we talked about with the fantasy preview or fantasy recap, I guess, the video a couple days ago. Bo Nix is putting up 20 fantasy points pretty reliably. So to me, him being a potential captain play, him being a flex play, him being a part of what I'm doing across everything, I think is very likely for what we're doing today. Hope Bo Nix doesn't blow dicks tonight. I mean, look, hey, Bo Nix not good at real life football, though. They're winning more, I guess, or about as much as you'd expect relative to the talent they have. He does do pretty well for fantasy because of that rushing upside. And again, because of the fact he just creates barely enough production to be usable. I expect that to be the case again today, but of course, we'll see what these Sims and Optimizer give us. Javonte Williams, your number 3 projected player, 13.8 fantasy points. So looking at these gaps, about a 5-point gap from Kamara to Nix, about a 3-point gap from Nix to Javonte Williams. So you'd expect Nix and Kamara to likely make every lineup today. Javonte Williams going to make him a bit less. Williams, the workload for him, a little bit of a concern on the year, only getting 14.2 intended touches a game, about 10 of which are rushes. So soft rushing matchup, but can you trust Javonte to get there? I'm not sold on that. That said, if he is going to get there, there's a matchup to do it. $8,800 salary for him as well. So Javonte, a solid enough pick. Estime only took a couple snaps last week. McLaughlin's snap count's been coming down. For Javonte, though, certainly some risk, including Coach Payton, like I'm on the team. Sean Payton talking about this week. They want to get Estime more work, some flowery talk about him. So a little bit of risk point for Javonte, but assuming that he does get the workload he gets, he's probably one of the better players in the slate, even though I trust him about as far as I could throw him. I have to assume I can't throw him very far. Spencer Rattler, number 4 here, 13.6 projected for him. So here's where we flatten out a little bit. Javonte, Spencer Rattler, pretty flat. Rattler, I thought visually pretty impressive last game. The numbers, though, not great. 55% catchable ball rate for him last week. Negative 0.63 EPA per deep target last week. So he did throw 5 deep targets in that game. Did okay on play action plays. Besides that, though, not a whole lot great for Rattler. Besides the fact he got out of the pocket, played pretty well. But a negative 0.3 EPA per dropback, negative 0.4 EPA per pass. So Rattler did not do a great job. Now he faces a Denver team that'll be a little bit weaker. No Cortland Sutton for them, but still overall a spot where I expect Denver to get decent results with how they've played on the year. A low completion rate. Actually, no, not a terrible completion rate. 64.4% completion rate allowed by Denver so far in the year. Rattler could benefit from that. His guys getting open is going to be the tough part here. But Rattler, like I will say Rattler, I was down on Rattler coming into the year. We had some guys coming in the chat here during the big board time of year. Of course, where I was standing for Jaden Daniels and to a lesser extent Caleb Williams. The guys were coming in and going like, hey, Spencer Rattler, he's going to be a real guy. I didn't see it. The more that I've dug into the numbers, I think he can be a passable kind of backup tier player. Visually, I feel like he looks like more than that. And that's probably where things kind of come to loggerheads a little bit there. For Rattler, I don't know how much he gets played in the slate. We're going to have to find out through the ownership and through the simulators. But for Rattler, I really think visually he looks good data-wise. And then it's like, oh, what did I actually see? That's sort of how I feel about Rattler, where the numbers don't look good. But I watched him and I was like, man, I don't mind this guy. You guys know, I played Rattler in DFS this past week. Felt okay about that. Didn't feel like I got bad results overall from him. He just didn't score a lot of touchdowns. Cortland Sutton, your number 5 overall. We got some Sutton captain thoughts going on. Certainly don't mind that one, but an 11.1 projection at his salary is pretty tough. Might be a little bit of a pay up to be contrarian spot for him more than anything. Top values on the slate. Nate Atkins, the backup tight end for Denver. Lucas Kroll took a big step forwards last week in snaps. So Atkins, I guess, looks like more of a value as a result. Last week, Kroll got 33 snaps. Atkins got 15. And Dulcich got 0. I guess because he was out, or is he just iced? Dulcich is hard to tell. It's hard to know at any point what Dulcich is going through, but I presume he's just out, right? Yeah, no, he's not getting a projection. Okay, so Dulcich expected to be out here. At this point, though, Atkins, not a player I'd expect to do too well. Certainly more of a Lucas Kroll overall tight end situation. Nothing that crazy there. Let's see. Went through the link in your description, sign up for the Solvers FYI Splash and not working any promos. Hopefully helps you out. Click the link. If you use the link, it should be okay, but it's hard to know. They don't give coupons, but the link should take you and give the credit for it. I think, Donnie, if you sign up yesterday, it should be good to go because I did get at least one conversion that came through yesterday. But appreciate the heads up. Audric Estimate, your number 2 value here. Again, the workload for him last week was not there. I would love to see Peyton get more involved. Of course, as a guy that Estimate I've liked since day one, but Estimate played legit 2 snaps last week. So I'm not sure how we'd expect Estimate to get more workload as a value. If things go bad for Javonte, as I mentioned, it is a soft matchup for the run defense here going against New Orleans run D. So Estimate as a value play, I don't hate it. I like the player, but I do want to try to turn off my best ball brain a little bit because I don't want to cram in a $400 player who, frankly, again, played 2 snaps last week. Adam Troutman last week, another value tight end. Troutman was down to 17 snaps last week. So Troutman, relatively the same play as Nate Atkins. Again, behind Lucas Kroll. None of these tight ends look that great, but Atkins and Troutman functionally the same play. Troutman about 3 times the salary, but both guys cheap enough here to be your value tight end who can catch 1 touchdown. Michael Burton, a value play that'd be hard to go to, mostly a fullback. Adam Prentice for New Orleans, basically the same thing. So your value plays, it feels like the Denver tight ends, Audric Estimate. Doesn't mean you have to go there, but if you're going to go there, you certainly can do that. All right. Ownership. Let's go over here. Of course, all the data I'm showing you on screen, you can get the updated versions of it as the day goes on via Stochastic. Check the link in the description. Of course, if you appreciate content like the show, where I'm showing you some of the top products out there with no bias, really. I just care about showing you guys the data and how I'm going to approach the slate. For you guys out there, though, if you want to take advantage of this stuff, really, please do. The only discount that Stochastic has going right now is that 15% off you get with that promo code SPLASH. And again, it supports the show here, so please support the show, support yourself, and check that out in the description. Solver 2, link in the description, which hopefully that works. Hopefully that works enough. Alvin Kamara, your top projected own player here. As we mentioned, that really high projection on him is going to get him in everywhere. Hard for me to imagine him not making a lineup in the flex at the very least, so I get the ownership here. 38% in captain. I mean, look, it just takes some pass catcher having the upside. Bo Nix running a little bit more. Obviously, Bo Nix is going to be owned too, but this is a lot. This is a lot of captain ownership. This is an impossible amount of captain ownership, and I get it for Kamara, but I would really like to not play Kamara at captain. I think that's basically it. Team that wins the slate will be extra weird. I would think with this much Kamara ownership, it is probably going to be a weird thing without Kamara, would be my guess, but that's, first instinct here. Bo Nix, 74% ownership, 17% in captain. So these are your 2 most popular captains here, Kamara and Bo Nix. Rattler, 59%, 7% in captain. Tougher defensive matchup he's going to face this week. For Rattler, again, the visual part, I liked what I saw. Data-wise, though, it just doesn't look like it was as good as it felt like in the moment. So for Rattler, if he's going to be very highly owned, I think playing him at captain's not crazy. His pass catchers are pretty cheap, but probably more inclined to try the pass catchers at captain than Rattler himself. He does run a little bit, though. Javonte Williams, number 4 highest owned guy, 55% overall, 10% captain. So game script where Denver dominates, expect Javonte to do a little bit better. Talked about Javonte's workload, not the best. The coach speak, not the best for him either. Talk about getting Estime more involved. So for Javonte, I'll play it with the field. I think I don't love him as a player. I don't love him in terms of just the sort of Damocles hanging over his head of just Sean Payton using somebody else, especially if they can't get there in this spot. Like, let's say this is a game that just goes back and forth. They're trading punts. This is the kind of spot where Payton could go like, we should be fucking beating these guys. And Javonte might be the reason we're not doing it. So for Javonte, I feel like kind of a rubber meets the road spot. I don't mind the ownership on him, but I do think it could easily burn you just as much as it could actually pay off and win you a tournament. Courtland Sutton, 38% ownership overall, 5% in captain. I would say as a play, that feels pretty good. I think this might be a little bit low for captain, though. I think people will think like Nolan does in the chat, or was it Nolan? Whoever said Sutton. I think it might have been XXS. Sorry, before. But basically, I think people are going to play Sutton more than this. 5% feels low for the alpha receiver. People know that captains, receivers always plays pretty well. That's something Cody Maines talked about the ownership. Basically, he's been seeing all year. I think in this spot, to me, Courtland Sutton feels a little bit under-owned in these projections, but obviously they're giving you what they give you. Bub means a little bit lower. If we go all the way down here, guys under 20%. Juwan Johnson, who did get a lot of checkdowns last week from Spencer Rattler, feels like he should be the most viable, most valuable pass catcher potentially. Blake Groupie, I guess if the team gets into that side of the field, should do okay. $5K salary for a kicker, though, where you're not expecting the offense to get even on that side of the field a ton, could be pretty tough. Will it be a defensive game? On paper, people will expect it to be, so that's what everybody's going to play. It's the most logical outcome given the total and the teams involved and the players involved. Again, a lot of talent being depleted from New Orleans side in particular, but your better outcome to win the most money is probably playing more scoring than not playing two defenses. Like people are going to definitely force defense a little bit more, even though defense, 5,200 for the Saints, Broncos, 4,800, high prices for the Ds and high ownership for the Ds as well. 31% for the Broncos, 24% for the Saints expected here. And wouldn't shock me if it were like 33% each, to be honest. Other low-owned guys, Troy Franklin, Lil Jordan Humphrey. So let me check this to be sure. Troy Franklin basically ran the same amount of rounds last week as Devon Vele. Lil Jordan Humphrey was down to 19, which is the lowest amount of rounds he's had so far this year. So Lil Jordan Humphrey is still in play. But Troy Franklin, look, again, I don't want to, this is a tough one for me because guys like Estime, guys like Troy Franklin, my best ball bags and my thoughts on these players inform me a little bit too much. Troy Franklin, though, got the work. He's being targeted pretty well, about a 25-26% target route run rate, which is basically flat with Vele. Franklin under 20% ownership. People are down on him. He's now getting the workload. He's been targeted well. He does have a rapport with Nix. He's also probably the fastest receiver they have, which is why they try to get him little screen passes. Now he's playing on turf. So Troy Franklin being under 20% owned, you guys know I really don't want to force my way there because I have the priors that were so in favor of him that in DFS I can cloud your judgment a little bit. But he's going to be under 20% owned. I think you got to play some Troy Franklin tonight. Jaleel McLaughlin, leverage point against Javonte Williams, I guess to a certain extent. It does feel like Estime could take a little bit away from McLaughlin as well. McLaughlin's workload's been okay. That's basically it. Well, don't worry. Please don't worry about shadow matchups. I can't be more clear about that. Also, Lattimore hasn't been good in like 3 years. Like please, doesn't matter. Cedric Wilson, and also shadow matchups don't happen that often anymore anyway. Cedric Wilson, 14.4% for him. Again, a player should be involved, the most professional receiver the Saints have left. Guys like Bub Means, guys like Mason Tipton have shown a little bit, so I don't mind those guys. But Wilson is a pro caliber receiver who's filled in pretty well. Last year, you might remember him doing fairly well a couple games where Tyreek Hill was out. In the past, filled in when Dallas had no guys left. Cedric Wilson being low owned, I think, is an interesting play as well. The workload's not been there for him, but he is a vetted professional receiver. Foster Moreau under 10%. He's been catching touchdowns. Lever against Juwan Johnson being a little bit higher owned. Lucas Kroll under 10%. Again, got the workload the most last week. Devon Vele at 6% feels low. Given the fact he's got a box score game, if I had to guess, Vele will be one of the higher owned Denver receivers. People will go to Sutton first, but Vele having a couple good box score games when he's played, I think we'll probably get a little bit more. Estime under 5%, Jamal Williams under 5%, Atkins, Mims has been behind all the other guys, so probably be tough for him to get there without a special teams touchdown or at least a big play. Kendre might be inactive. Troutman, Prentice, really awful down here. Nicodemus St. Brown, surprised. He must be hurt too, right? Surprised he wouldn't get in the mix at all, but guess not. Let's go to the solver now. Let's see what we get here. course, solver link in the description down below, and I'm pretty sure the link does work, even though, again, you don't get a discount with the solver, so keep that in mind. But check the link in the description if you want to try out the solver. Solver, of course, an optimizer with a simulator combined, as opposed to stochastic, which is mostly just a simulator. So if you want more control, use the solver. If you want to just get fed good lineups in a short period of time, I would use stochastic. That's basically the best way that I could say for you guys out there to try to make a good sales pitch that makes sense for you all. Your top protected players according to ETR right now, these are Captain Kamara, not quite as big of a gap between Kamara and Nix, but still a pretty big one. Nix number 2, Javonte number 3, Rattler number 4, Sutton number 5. So basically the same as stochastic there. Let's see what we get with 25 lineups here in an unencumbered crunch. The goal of running the optimizer here, which I probably don't spell it enough every video now as I used to do like last year. I spelled it out really well, I thought. This year, not doing as good of a job. Basically, the reason you look at these projections only, so no boosts to anything, no correlation added, you're just kind of running the projections because you want to see what the math drives people to. Same thing for a showdown as it would be for a main slate. For showdown, it's more important, though, because players basically end up getting in lineups even more just because of the projection math of it. So keep that in mind here as we go through this process here of the top 25 lineups. Your cash game lineup as of 11:15 or 11:17 a.m. on the East Coast right now. Alvin Kamara at captain, Bo Nix, Spencer Rattler, Javonte Williams, Troy Franklin, cash game Troy Franklin. Love to see it. Mason Tipton at number 5. So you're getting Kamara captain. I imagine we're going to get a lot of Kamara captain overall here, but that's how that looks right now. Overall, in your top 25, you're getting 100% Alvin Kamara, 100% Javonte Williams, 100% Bo Nix. So showdown rules, guys. What does that mean? You get 100% of all these guys based off just the math, just the projections. That means if you start stripping these guys away, it's how you get away from the field. So field's going to play a lot of Kamara, a lot of Javonte, a lot of Nix. Hard to imagine Kamara not getting there again in the flex. So out of those 3 guys, I feel like Kamara would be the one I would be the most reluctant to take out. But if you do take him out, you're getting away from the most of the field. So that's sort of the trade-off there. Javonte would be the one I'd have the easiest time taking out because you can play the pass game, play other running backs for Denver. A lot of ways for that to hit. Javonte could be a good play. He could be a dog shit play that kills everybody. Neither would shock me. So that's the tournament play of him. He shouldn't be a 100% play to me. Bo Nix at number 3, I'd put, the guy I would have a hard time getting away from right behind Kamara. Bo Nix runs a good amount. Bo Nix also represents a little bit less ownership at captain. Some easy ways to stack him up with cheap guys or receiver as well. If you were to somehow hit that true ceiling, that would make him a captain. It doesn't include all running. So for Bo Nix, to me, I think he's a better player than Javonte, but Nix, Javonte, Kamara, they're all getting in. Stack construction here. You're getting 3 threes 56% of the time, 2 fours favoring the Saints 24% of the time, 4 twos favoring the Broncos 16% of the time. And you do get some Broncos onslaughts. You do not get any Saints onslaughts. So playing a Saint onslaught at home would be a little bit less owned. People won't land on that naturally. Hard to feel good about that one. But frankly, a Saints 5-1 with a Bo Nix as a bring back, Saints 5-1 with one of the pass catchers as a bring back, I could live with that. So I don't think it's a bad build to go that way right now. Checking the chat real fast. Nix doubles with no team defenses, no Kamara captain. Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly an approach that would get you less owned. Why does Dennis Allen hate Kendra Miller? I was actually listening to the stochastic stream before this one. I think I tend to agree, like the work ethic is probably not there as much. Sometimes, when you're injured a lot and you're not doing the work to keep yourself healthy, that's something the teams frown upon. So he's had bad injury luck, but it's also one of those things where I think he's probably not putting in the effort, and I think that shows. Saints are really bad defense between the 20s, but they're really strong in the red zone. Lots of field goal opportunities for Lutz. And a revenge game for Lutz, too. Let me look at that. New Orleans defense average in the red zone against the rush, negative 0.09 EPA per rush, negative 0.3 per red zone pass. So shutting down the pass fairly well in the red zone. But yeah, look, I mean, I think that's a reasonable take. All right. Let's go to the stochastic sims here. I'm trying to keep these at 30 minutes if I can. So solver sims, you want to see more of that, link in the description if you want to get the solver for yourself. We'll show you stochastic sims at more depth though here. Of course, we're going to try to do is build 10,000 lineups here. And what stochastic will do is have those 10,000 lineups that are meant to represent what the field's going to be building based on the ownership projections. It's going to have them compete 10,000 times. So let's see what they can do coming up here. And of course, good time to plug. Guys, subscribe down below, hit the like button, leave a comment. Of course, I do this work, this level of detail I give on every slate I do. Of course, showdowns, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Friday, main slate, Sunday, my final takes video at 9 a.m. It's coming up this weekend. So please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, show some love here. I'm just a sole proprietor showing you my gambling here, trying to add value to your process. And based on what I hear from you guys, it feels like I do add enough value. So please just show some love if you can. And of course, join down below for $4.99. Actually did figure out, guys, how to export memberships. Fortunately, well, I'll explain it later, but we do have the names. We'll have the thank you Squirt Squad at the end of the video again. So if you're a paying customer, you get one of your perks back. Let's run this contest sim. Let's see what Stochastic gives us. If I had to guess, still going to give us a lot of Kamara. I think the Sims are going to think just play Kamara and worry about the other 5 spots would be my guess. But let's see what we get here. I think Nick's less so. I think Kamara gets into like every lineup. I think Nick's gets into less lineups would be my guess. But let's see. Of course, going to hand build after this as well. And at the end of the video, guys, 3 takeaways to give you unique lineups or to build unique lineups tonight based on everything we've seen here. Let's compile some results. Ooh, I love when we're compiling results. Also, check it out, guys. Here, I'll go full screen for this. Got my BBM maxing shirt from last year's BBM. So I don't know why they didn't do it just for BBM 5 instead. I guess maybe the time frame of figuring out who maxed it and making merch. I'm not sure. But if I saw some people out there on Twitter posting theirs. So here we go. I'm finally wearing mine here, my mesh shirt, which I feel like you can probably see my nips. I don't know. If that interests you, I feel like it's pretty sheer, but does retain heat well, which is nice because it's still cold in the house. They fixed our heater and did not actually fix our heater. Great times. All right, top lineups right now according to Stochastic. Javonte captain, Troutman, Kamara, Bo Nix, Jaleel McLaughlin, Spencer Rattler. So both Denver RBs, or I guess 2 of the 3 Denver RBs that are playable. Adam Troutman, one of the low-owned tight ends. Full salary. They think that'll make it unique. I think playing Troutman, McLaughlin, Javonte, no pass catchers, I do think this would be unique enough to not get duped a bunch. So top ROI lineup right now, a $50K salary spent. So you don't usually see that. Alvin Kamara, captain here. Bo Nix, Broncos. Cedric Wilson. We're pals. Cedric Wilson. Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams. Number 3 ROI lineup. Kamara, Bo Nix, Broncos, Javonte. Marvin Mims, Will Lutz. So the kicker there for the Denver Broncos coming in. Kamara, Bo Nix, Bub Means, Jaleel McLaughlin, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Spencer Rattler. Like Lil Jordan Humphrey coming down a little bit with that workload we saw last week, but he's still getting about 20 routes a game, so he's a fine enough play relative to this slate, I guess. Bo Nix, Alvin Kamara, Broncos D, Cedric Wilson, Jaleel McLaughlin, Spencer Rattler. So you're getting nothing stacked up with Bo Nix. Bo Nix captain without pass catchers. He can get there with rushing, but I feel like you're asking for more dupes than not if you play Bo Nix without pass catchers in the flex. That's that. Why does Dennis Allen hate winning? I mean, he's winning pretty well in the beginning of the year. The Saints, I think, are really getting a bad rap. So number 1, the injury stuff right now is really unlucky. Number 2, so playing against Philly, playing, even against the Chiefs, they leave big plays in the field a little bit more than you want to see. And granted, that's like being a mid-major in March Madness, shooting a lot of 3-pointers. Like you're playing in a way that's going to lead you to win. If you don't hit those shots, you don't hit those deep balls, you don't win. So I get how it would go. But in reality, the team we saw the first 2 weeks was really fucking good. And I don't think that was entirely just them playing dog shit teams. I think it was that they ran well. After that, they didn't run well. So I don't think it's really on Dennis Allen. He should get fired because he just seems like an asshole. But I really don't think it's on him. I think it's more that they got figured out a little bit. They also kind of ran bad. And those 2 things combined make them look a lot worse right now than they probably are. Not having Derek Carr doesn't help either. But yeah, it's basically the whole thing. All right. Top 150 lineups here. We'll see what the overall numbers look like. Your highest ROI players right now, according to Stochastic, Marvin Mims coming in. Again, Mims getting about 15 to 20 snaps of what you'd expect here. Special teams work could maybe help him out a little bit, but a 9% ROI for him. Troutman, an 8% ROI rounded up is number 2. McLaughlin, number 3, 5%. Lil Jordan Humphrey, number 4 at 3%. Tipton, number 5 at 2%. And Kamara, slightly negative ROI at captain, despite the fact we're probably going to be playing him a lot there. All right, your overall exposures, according to Stochastic, what they would give you in their top 150 lineups right now. They are still in salary cap hell, yes. But I mean, they're better at negotiating it than most, so that'd be the trade-off. But they just keep pushing it to the future, basically. So at some point, I guess, the bill does come to do theoretically. Your top exposed players. So you're getting 58% Bo Nix in the flex, your highest exposed player overall. Javonte, 54% in the flex. Kamara, 50% in the flex, 50% at captain, 47% at flex. So as predicted, the projection for Kamara is too high that basically they want you to get Kamara no matter what. So 97% of the top 150 lineups have Kamara. As I mentioned, I do feel like this is one slate where you're not really getting. So normally the play is like you play the ceiling outcome. If a guy's going to be too highly owned, I'll play him if he plays captain. If he really hits it, I'll be good. You certainly can do that with Kamara as well. But I think this is one slate where if he's going to be 40% owned to captain, you're basically getting the same ownership of him at the flex. So you're not really gaining that benefit of him at captain. You're getting the benefit if he hits, that obviously like you're getting 1.5 extra points. But if he doesn't hit as much as one of these other guys at a little bit cheaper, then you're saving money as well. So for Kamara, I get why the Sims would give you him at captain and flex. I feel like Kamara at the flex is more appealing today, basically. Is this a Sean Payton revenge game? Yeah, I mean, technically, I don't think Denver's played New Orleans yet, unless I've missed something. Keep the Sims, touch Mims, low-owned player who has theoretical spike upside. That's basically it. So anything worth looking at how Rattler did versus Blitz? I think Denver's a high Blitz team. They're not that high. Actually, no, they are. Never mind. I was looking at New Orleans. 42%, 29% pressure rate. I care more about pressure. Blitzing doesn't really matter. It's if the guy gets home or not. So against pressure, Rattler's really bad. They got pressure a lot. So actually, yeah, you know what? Rattler wasn't good. Let's clarify this. So Rattler got sacked 2% of the time he saw pressure, 31% of the time he sees pressure, but a negative 0.8 EPA per pressure play is not good. So he's going to see a lot of pressure here. He's evaded pressure well relative to a one-game sample size of avoiding sacks. I think he gets sacked a little bit more today, but I don't know. I wouldn't really worry about how he's going to do poorly. If pressure gets there, he's going to do poorly. If the blitz gets up, he's going to do poorly. Basically that. Besides this, I feel like Rattler was highly targeting Means. Means has the best target per out run, 25%, compared to 13% for Tipton and 8% for Cedric Wilson. I still don't know that Means is like a real guy. I think Cedric Wilson is like a legit pro. Means had the best workload. Means is the best projection. So like no issue with Means really. But I do think that people are going to chase Means more. So again, it's a showdown. It's not about like what happened. It's about what can happen this game. And it's also not about playing the best players, as we talk about a lot with showdowns. It's about building the most unique lineups that have a viable pathway to first place. So I think people are going to play Means a lot based off the box score. I think nobody's going to play Cedric Wilson based off the box score. I'd rather play the professional receiver, but that's basically it. All right. What else can we look at here? Let's look at some lineups of different captains up top. Then I'll hand build mine. Different captains. I honestly don't even know what to look at here. Captain contains. What does it take for Troy Franklin captain to hit? Oh, no. All right. We got one positive ROI. 85% ROI for this one. Troy Franklin, Alvin Kamara, Bo Nix, Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams, Spencer Rattler. So Troy Franklin at captain means that both RBs make the lineup. Rattler, push, pull. I guess now no receivers get their New Orleans side. Everything else for Troy Franklin at captain, negative ROI. That's sad to see. Look, I'll take a stab at Troy Franklin. Captain equals Bub Means. Let's try that. Bub Means, Kamara, Bo Nix, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tipton, Rattler. Also, XXX, I feel like you're fixated on the second lineup. You said that a couple times. Probably going to get played a lot because it's the number 2 lineup on one of the biggest DFS tools in the world. So keep that in mind if you're just going to play it straight away. Bub Means, Kamara, Nix, Jaleel McLaughlin. Why is McLaughlin getting in everywhere? Mason Tipton, Spencer Rattler. I feel like the sim is thinking that Denver is going to have the ball a lot because McLaughlin's making a lot of these lineups, and I don't see how McLaughlin gets there unless they're just dominating the ball in offense. Means, Kamara, Bo Nix, Broncos, Jaleel McLaughlin, Spencer Rattler. Means, Kamara, Bo Nix, Cedric Wilson, Javonte, Spencer Rattler. Means, Kamara, McLaughlin, Javonte, Saints, Spencer Rattler. Tell you what, you fade the Denver run game. Seems like you're getting away from a lot of these highest ROI lineups. Not that you necessarily want to do that. That's one way to strip away some ownership, which is we see it a few times in these streams. Does work out enough to point out. Cedric Wilson, captain. This is not going to be a lot of high ROIs, is it? Cedric Wilson, captain with Kamara, Bo Nix, Javonte, Saints D, Rattler. Cedric Wilson, Kamara, Bo Nix, McLaughlin, Javonte, Rattler. Cedric Wilson, Kamara, Group A, Bo Nix, Javonte, Rattler. Really, Javonte and McLaughlin make everything that's top ROI lineup, which, all right. Cedric Wilson, Kamara, Bo Nix, Sutton, Mason Tipton, Rattler. So this one has no RBs in it. I don't think that gets duped. I really don't think that gets duped at a 47.6 salary. Cedric Wilson, captain, no RBs from Denver, but Stochastic Sim seems to think that gets duped. And Cedric Wilson, Kamara, Bo Nix, Javonte, Rattler, Lutz. That one could get duped. What else? Mason Tipton captain. Actually, Juwan Johnson captain. Let's do like a more logical receiver, I think. Juwan Johnson, Kamara, Bo Nix, Cedric Wilson, Jaleel McLaughlin, Rattler. Again, McLaughlin keeps sneaking in. Juwan Johnson, Troutman, Kamara, Nix, Javonte, Rattler. Javonte sneaks in. Juwan Johnson, Kamara, Bo Nix, Jaleel McLaughlin, Mason Tipton, Rattler. Juwan Johnson, Kamara, Broncos, Javonte, Saints, Rattler. Tell you what, if Estime were to hit, he would kill so much of the field. If he were to hit enough that he outscores Javonte and McLaughlin, he is going to ice a lot of these sim lineups, which, again, I don't think is the most likely thing to happen, but I just point out the things I see them, and I do think that there's just a lot of Denver RBs that are not Estime. Captain, what other captains can we look at? Captain Bo Nix, to see what these look like. I think we saw this one already. Bo Nix, Kamara, Broncos D, Cedric Wilson, McLaughlin, Rattler. Bo Nix, Kamara, Broncos D, Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte, Humphrey. Bo Nix, Kamara, Moreau, Javonte, Lil Jordan, Humphrey, Rattler. Bo Nix, Kamara, Broncos, Javonte Williams, Saints, Troy Franklin. And Bo Nix, Kamara, Broncos D, Bub Means, Sutton, Devon Vele. I would say out of this group, this one appeals to me the most because you're fading the RBs with the QB captain, which I think makes sense. Obviously, an RB can hit with a QB captain, but just because these guys come in so much, I really do think Estime gains in value and Lutz gains in value just because the Sims cannot avoid Javonte, cannot avoid McLaughlin. What other captains can we look at? Sutton captain, real fast. And we'll hand build it out after this, unless somebody has a request that I actually feel like hitting. Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix, Javonte Williams, Mason Tipton, Spencer Rattler. Cortland Sutton, Adam Prentice, Alvin Kamara, Bo Nix, Cedric Wilson, Spencer Rattler. So interesting to note, all these Cortland Sutton captain lineups, none of them in the top 150 ROIs for stochastic. So again, same thing here where you're not only playing against like the median outcomes, you're also now in large field tournaments playing against the sim outcomes as well. When you see a sim outcome is not coming up often as positive ROI, it should put your brain to go, I should play a little bit of this. Cortland Sutton captain not coming up in the top 150 ROI lineups means, number one, the Sims don't think he's a great play. As a result, that probably makes him a better tournament play. So it's the push-pull of this whole where basically Sutton, as a player, does not project well enough relative to his salary. As a result, he doesn't make the Sim lineups enough. Because he's not making the Sim lineups enough, he then looks like a better play because nobody's going to be playing him that are playing Sim. So I hope that explains it well enough, but that is sort of the 40 chess you have to do for a showdown slate to have any shot at profitability. But these Sutton lineups, look, they're all valid, even though, again, too many Denver RBs getting into everything. Let's hand build a lineup, though. Let's see what we can do with that. So let's go over here, refresh this screen, shrink it down. We're doing a large contest, 35% to first. How do we get weird here? This is also the main slate. I need to switch to showdown. How do we get weird? Rude enough to win a showdown, that sucks. Bub Means captain. Can he really get there versus Denver? I feel like Bub Means the flex feels a little bit better. Sutton captain stood out to me. I think Sutton captain is like a logical pathway that makes perfectly credible sense. He's not going to be as owned as he should be. Let's go Cortland Sutton captain. I think Bo Nix has to make it. Broncos D captain, again, like anything defense heavy, even kicker heavy is going to get owned a little bit more. Projections are going to push you more towards like the Denver RBs and stuff. But really in this spot, like Broncos D captain, I don't know. I personally don't like playing defense captain that much, especially in a slate where everybody's expecting it coming. I don't think that's the time to do it personally. But that's my thought. Kamara in the flex, again, hard for him not to make it in the flex, I think. This could be a game too where both defenses make it because people don't score enough fantasy points. Let's see. Can that happen with Sutton at captain? Let's just see see how this goes. Just out of curiosity. This is not going to be like my final hand build here. But I just want to see how this affects the ROI. So we're saying nobody gets here besides Sutton. Nix and Kamara are kind of PPR scamming and QB run scamming their way in. Maybe Marvin Mims gets a return touchdown, and that correlates with the Broncos D. So let's see what Sutton, Nix, Kamara, both defenses, and Mims does here. I have to imagine this is not going to be a positive ROI. Let's give it a shot. It's going to be outside working and listening. It's cold, isn't it? It was fucking 30 when I woke up here and outside the Philly area, which does not spark joy. Negative 39% ROI for this. Let's take out the defense and see what we can do instead. I'm going to Troy Franklin here. I think people go to Vele. I get why. These guys are getting targeted roughly the same amount, running roughly the same amount of routes. My boy Troy comes in here. Estime. Let's fucking fade. Let's fade these dickhead Broncos RBs and go to our other best ball boy, Audric Estime. And then Rattler running a little bit. That would work. Juwan Johnson instead of Rattler would also, man, you're giving up a lot of production if I do that. Let's do that. We don't want to leave. We don't want to do a 50K salary, I don't think. It might be low enough owned, though. Let's see what Juwan does, and I'm going to see what a sim instead of Juwan, what Rattler does. But Cortland Sutton, captain. Bo Nix, Alvin Kamara, Troy Franklin, Audric Estime, Juwan Johnson. So my best ball lineups plus Alvin Kamara, Cortland Sutton, and Juwan Johnson. All right, so that did not work out well according to the sim. A 0% chance of winning, which does anything really have a 0% chance of winning? I don't think so. Spencer Rattler, let's put him in instead. So using the entire salary here, much better projection. I think the ownership's probably too high at 214. With Rattler flex, because like I said last week, he's going to go throw TDs to both teams. Yeah, not sure. Negative 55% ROI here. All right. Well, I don't care. This is my final team. Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix, Alvin Kamara, Troy Franklin, Audric Estime, and I would still go Juwan Johnson over Spencer Rattler, trying to target a little bit more of the points there. Both defenses being fine, but again, like Shannon, I think you're thinking that you're thinking uniquely. You're thinking in a way that like everybody's going to think today. So I think that's sort of going to be the dynamic that everybody has to overcome on today's slate. Speaking of that, guys, 3 takeaways to build unique lineups today. First of all, please hit the like button, subscribe before I give the 3 takeaways. Subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. All those engagements help me out a bunch here. As just one guy here trying to keep a channel afloat. And frankly, despite being one guy, I get a lot more views, a lot more engagement than other channels out there. So I do appreciate that part of it. Let's keep it rolling, guys. Show some love because I'm trying to make this capable of being my full-time job. So please subscribe down below. Again, we're going to do our 3 takeaways, but Stochastic 15% off. Underdog, $1,000 in bonus cash. Check that out. Link description for that. Solver, link description for that as well. And of course, join down below for $4.99. All right, 3 takeaways, build unique lineups. Number 1 would be the obvious one, as we always talk about here, the guys that come up in every lineup based on projections. Stripping away one of Bo Nix, Alvin Kamara, and Javonte Williams. And you guys, at this point, you get Javonte, my least favorite play of those 3. But that said, all those guys come up in every lineup, and it probably means that relative to most slates, that means those guys are going to be the best plays. Like the reason plays become chalk because they're the best plays in the slate. They're the best projection, best salary, best value, all that stuff. That said, on showdowns, the way you win the most money is just going away from that stuff. So anything you could do to kind of chip away from the chalk, chip away from the most obvious outcomes, that's what you can do. So strip away one of Javonte, one of Bo Nix, one of Kamara if you're going to try to get unique. If you're going to play all 3 guys, make sure you're doing weird shit around that. Make sure you're playing 2 defenses. Make sure you're playing low-owned player X, Cedric Wilson, captain, whatever the case may be. Play something weird if you're going to play those 3 guys because they're going to come up everywhere. Number 2 way to get unique would be, I think the 5-1 Saints onslaughts are going to be unique. I think people, despite no Patrick Surtain out there, which is going to really hurt the Broncos defense, by the way. Like one player usually for me in the defense doesn't matter enough. My time at Football Outsiders, if like the only thing you would change DVOA for is if a QB was out, you have the big drop from the starter back to the backup. Defense is usually 1 player, even 2, 3, 4 players out of a defense don't materially affect the way you expect a defense to perform. That said, Surtain is a big enough one that I don't think it matters like what he's going to do to the players around him. What he does to the overall defense is really my concern. So I would expect that to matter a little bit more. And as a result, I think Saints players getting a little bit more appealing in a 5-1 build. People just won't play enough. So 5-1s for the Saints. I don't think it's going to be like the thing that I expect to happen, but it's going to be low owned enough here in a game where they're at home and Rattlers look competent enough, even though the data doesn't fully support that. I think playing some Saints 5-1s would be appealing as well. Number 3 would be, and this is a tough one because I get why these guys are so highly owned, but nobody really dominates the backfield enough. I think fading the Denver RBs, or at least trying to play them more uniquely, is an interesting way to do that. The Sims want you to play both of them. My brain then goes play none of them or try to play Estime and see if you can hit. Estime, again, they'll play 2 snaps last week. So I think the better move would be playing the pass games for both sides, playing your Kamara, and then fading both Javonte and Jaleel McLaughlin. I think will get you away from a large portion of the field because it just seems like the products out there are going to push you to have one of Javonte or Jaleel McLaughlin, and both guys could easily bust. not be good plays, especially Javonte, to be honest, with that much ownership. So here we go, guys. That's the slate here. Shout out to all the fine folks who've joined down below. Again, we got it back here. It's now not in order of signups. It's in a random order. So unfortunately, I can't control that part anymore. But thank you to all the fine folks who joined the channel. You too can support the show down below for $4.99. Of course, you get my data. You get a premium video from me on Fridays where we go game by game, talk about the advanced analytics and the matchups and what I expect to happen based on all that. So that's coming up tomorrow after the video we do for free at 11 a.m. Stay tuned for that coming up tomorrow on the channel. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. Of course, gamble responsibly, even though it's always money time. And thank you guys for watching. Hit the like before you go. I'll see you guys tomorrow with more. So, hey, enjoy your days. And, of course, good luck. Bye-bye.